The Pittsburgh Steelers aren't done yet making moves. They just signed Aaron Rodgers, and now they're making calls to other teams to try to add playmakers next to him. For example, they already called for Jonnu Smith, Palmer from Tampa Bay, but now they're bringing in Gabe Davis for a workout, and they just called the Falcons to try to trade for Kyle Pitts. And apparently they're going to be calling for Lazard here shortly. But first, before I get more into that update and how that's going, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news and updates. Also like this video. Now, let's get right back into it. So, a new report has come out by NFL Network's Ian Rapoport, one of the top insiders in the NFL, I would say top 2. And he said the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have inquired about some other weapons. And I know we're talking about receivers, talking about pass catchers. They've had their eyes on some tight ends too. Jonnu Smith, there was a phone call there. Kyle Pitts, there was a phone call there. The Steelers are in the market, it seems, for at least one more playmaker. End quote. So, we already knew about Jonnu Smith, about that phone call that the Pittsburgh Steelers made to the Miami Dolphins. And then it came up a week later that they called again for him. But we didn't know about Kyle Pitts for sure. There was a rumor out there going along that the Pittsburgh Steelers may be interested, but Ian Rapoport makes it official that the Pittsburgh Steelers have actually called the Falcons about Kyle Pitts. So, I'll get more into Kyle Pitts as the video goes along, but let's just update you on Gabe Davis, because we never heard really anything from him and the Pittsburgh Steelers about that meeting that they had on Friday, because the Pittsburgh Steelers were supposed to host Gabe Davis, bring him to the facility, work him out, and see if he's ready to go. Well, he's not ready to go, because Ian Rapoport said that the Steelers hosted Gabe Davis on a visit, and he's not quite ready to sign, just health-wise, yet. So, end quote. With Gabe Davis, he suffered a torn meniscus in November, ending his season, and that's kind of why the Jaguars released him, because he wasn't healthy, and they decided to let him go. And before the Pittsburgh Steelers took a visit with Gabe Davis and brought him in, the San Francisco 49ers and the New York Jets both did the same thing. And he left both those meetings without a contract, and he left the Pittsburgh Steelers without a contract as well. So, money isn't the issue here. It's similar to other players like Russell Wilson from the Denver Broncos a year ago. The Jaguars are on the hook for a salary, meaning any team that signs Davis will pay the minimum, with Jacksonville on the hook for the guaranteed money it still owes Davis. So that's not an issue. It's about the health and the fit, which are the two questions with Gabe Davis right now, and the reason why he hasn't signed with any team. So he is a player who in Buffalo was a playmaker. He torched the Steelers in 2022 with 2 long touchdowns, including 98 yards and a 38-3 blowout win. His 2024 season was cut short to injury, and he just caught 20 passes for less than 300 yards. But if you're looking at production per catch, 300 yards or around 300 is really, really good. So he still could be a good playmaker in this league. He's getting overlooked, but hopefully he gets back healthy and the Pittsburgh Steelers can add him to this team, because obviously they are interested and they wouldn't bring him in for no reason. So that's the update on Gabe Davis. Now let's move to Lazard, because apparently, per Mike Florio, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are going to trade for wide receiver Lazard by training camp. He fully expects that. So let's look a little bit into that, because me personally, I don't believe this is the best move for the Steelers or Lazard. And I'll start with Lazard first, because he has played with Aaron Rodgers his entire career so far in Green Bay. And then when he went to the Jets, he had an off year when Aaron Rodgers got injured. But when Aaron Rodgers was his quarterback, he did solid, and he was a playmaker for the Jets. So at some point down the road, when Aaron Rodgers retires, he's going to have to prove to the league that he could play without Aaron Rodgers, and he's not just a product of him. So it's in his best interest for his long-term career to show what he has without Aaron Rodgers this season and prove to the doubters that he could do it without him. So in Allen Lazard's respect, I believe that's in his best interest. And in the Steelers' best interest, I don't believe adding Allen Lazard helps this team in terms of adding that big playmaker next to DK Metcalf. It's just like adding another number 3 receiver, number 4 receiver to this roster and someone who's just comfortable around Aaron Rodgers. But Mike Florio, he says that the Pittsburgh Steelers, you could put him down for this. I fully expect sooner than later, and no later than training camp, the Steelers will trade for Jets receiver Allen Lazard. And it's been waiting for that to happen. They've been waiting to know that what Aaron Rodgers is going to do, and Lazard, I think, is a perfect complement. This question becomes, what do the Jets want? So Mike Florio, he's basically the owner of Pro Football Talk, and that's a big news source as well. So that's something that he has said to the Pittsburgh Steelers fans and just NFL world in general. That's something he's put out there. So let's move over back to what the Pittsburgh Steelers have already called for in the past. So apparently 2 weeks ago and 1 week ago, the Pittsburgh Steelers called the Miami Dolphins for tight end Jonnu Smith, and then Parham got injured, and the Pittsburgh Steelers recalled on Jonnu Smith as well, trying to trade for him. He's 31 years old. He has a connection to Arthur Smith both in Tennessee and Atlanta, so he's going to come in needing a new contract if the Pittsburgh Steelers do decide to trade for him. But as of right now, I guess the talks have stalled. It's been a while, and we've gotten no update thus far. Now, the Pittsburgh Steelers apparently also called on Palmer from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a wide receiver from them. We've gotten no update on that, on how that went. It looks like that probably stalled out as well. But that's another player the Pittsburgh Steelers apparently called for, another playmaker. So this is basically just an update video, updating you on all the playmakers the Pittsburgh Steelers have called for, are going to call for, and things of that nature. And it just seems as though they're not done yet making a move for this roster. There's some free agents out there as well. And the Pittsburgh Steelers still have a lot of cap space to work with, over $20 million. So they could go out and sign a player that I want, like Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is still a high-tier wide receiver in this league. He played solid with the Bears. He wasn't too bad. He was dealing with some injuries there, but he had a solid season. And the season before that, that was one of his best seasons in the NFL. So it's not like it's been a long time since his last great season. No, it's really only been 1 year. So he can still turn around and come back and play at a high level. And I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers should show interest in him. There's no report out there about him, but I'm just saying that's a player that I want. So there are some free agents out there that Pittsburgh Steelers could still sign in the free agent market at wide receiver and just playmakers in general. Now, going back to the reports about all these guys that have been said and who I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers should prioritize at the top of the list, I believe the top guy should be Kyle Pitts, because Kyle Pitts is a player who just hasn't been given the opportunity in Atlanta to be the player that he should be. He was a top 5 pick, top 10 pick for a reason, and he just hasn't been given the opportunity to be throwing the ball by top tier quarterbacks or throwing the ball consistently at high level. And before Kirk Cousins got injured last season or taken out the lineup, he was on pace to go over 1,000 yards. So I believe Aaron Rodgers could really help that, and he could turn around his career. He's a player who should be traded for and be given the right situation. And he's a player who could be dynamic, play as a tight end, play as a wide receiver. So that could really help fit both spots for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Kyle Pitts would be at the top of my list because he's still very, very young in this league and has a lot more space to grow and has a high ceiling. I don't believe the Steelers should trade for Jonnu Smith. He's 31. He just doesn't fit the bill. His last season with Miami Dolphins was his best season, but prior to that, he really just has been a solid backup tight end in this league. So, you also look at Gabe Davis. I believe this is another player that Pittsburgh Steelers should take a shot on in free agency. He's a player who has big play capability and beating his man deep every single play. He's shown that with the Bills. He shows that top end speed. His hands are a little bit questionable, but other than that, the Steelers can take a shot on him, and I would be fine with it. It's not as though he would be the number 2 receiver, but someone who could make some plays here and there. Also, Allen Lazard, I don't really like that because he would probably move into the second receiver role, and I don't believe Roman Wilson and Kelvin Austin would be given the full opportunity that they deserve. So those are kind of how I view the trade targets for the Steelers, what I would want and prioritize on this team. But in general, this was just your updates on all Pittsburgh Steelers news surrounding that regard. Anyway, let me your thoughts down in the comments below on these players. Let me know your list of these guys that Pittsburgh Steelers apparently shown interest in. Who do you want? Who don't you want? And who else should the Pittsburgh Steelers call about? Let me your thoughts down in the comments below. And also, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn notifications for everything Pittsburgh Steelers news, updates, highlights, analysis, reports. Everything surrounding this team, I've covered it. I'll continue to cover it as we head along into mandatory minicamp on Tuesday. I'll give you highlights and analysis with that, so stay tuned to this channel. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn notifications. Comment down below. And until the next video, I'll see you guys all later. That's it for me. I'm out. Peace.